The presenting sponsor for On Education is Schoology. Schoology is not only the best learning management system, it's also a community of lifelong learners. Join On Education at the Schoology Next Conference July 16th through 18th in San Diego, California. This is a chance to immerse yourself in hands-on workshops, advanced product training sessions, and best practice presentations. If you want to learn more about Schoology and how they can help you advance what's possible, visit Schoology.com.
I tell you, I'm transitioning to summer vacation in my head, that's for sure. Welcome to On Education. I'm Mike Washburn.
And I'm Glen Irvin. Friends, we have an awesome pod for you today. We will discuss whether summer vacation should be shorter, the Ontario election results, Apple's new iOS 12, and our guest this week will be teacher and author Brian Costello.
This is like one of my most favorite. This is one of my favorite weeks of the year. I love E3.
You love E3.
Do you follow E3?
It's awesome. I actually, I kind of do, but not to the level of I like look at the news at the end of the day, I guess. That's a good way to put it. Those kinds of things.
I went to E3 once. I think that's why I have. Yeah. So in a previous life, in like my third previous life,
okay,
I wrote for video game websites, like not small ones, like not like the biggest of the big ones, but ones that were big enough to have money to send me to E3.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, and it was the one I went to was 2000. I went in 2011. So, but for the longest time, it's been press only, right? Like you weren't, the public can't go to E3. If you want to go to a games convention, you go to PAX, right?
Okay.
The Penny Arcade conference. You couldn't get into E3, but it's rad. It's a really cool experience being there. I didn't go to I didn't go to like the press events, like the big theater things that they do.
Okay.
But I booked meetings with a bunch of people. I once sat in a theater beside Felicia Day and talked about Skyrim a year before it came out with what's his name, the head developer from Bethesda. So
wow.
I got lots of pretty cool memories of E3. But big news, lots of cool games coming out, lots of cool stuff. So if you follow E3, you should check out. I guess Polygon is probably my favorite source.
Yeah, Polygon's awesome
For news. Anthem is like, I guess, the next Destiny competitor. It looks like Destiny to me. So
okay.
I mean,
is that what it looks like?
Yeah.
What console is it on, or is it not console specific?
I think it's coming out for everything.
For everything, okay.
Yeah. The big one that I'm interested in is tonight, the Bethesda conference.
Yeah.
Event. They'll talk about the new Fallout, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah. That looks amazing as always. Their games are ridiculous. Bethesda.
Absolutely. Kingdom Hearts 3 got a release date today. That just happened, like literally like 10 minutes ago. They announced the release date for Kingdom. So if you're a Kingdom Hearts fan, which, everyone should be a Kingdom Hearts fan, January 25th, 2019, my wife, who I haven't told this news to yet, will be happy to hear it. I'm going to actually keep it a secret and let her listen to it on the podcast.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Be like, did you listen to the podcast yet?
I got some news for you, but it's on the podcast. We've embedded
Cheryl,
it.
Kingdom Hearts 3, Jan 25th. Book it. Joe Lynch, actually, who we've interviewed before, is a big fan of Unravel, the game called Unravel that EA made, and they announced Unravel 2. So this is the one with the Yarny, the character that had like a string. Yeah, and you use the string as like a physics element to like climb up and do a bunch of things.
It's very cute. It's actually really difficult. You have to really think through a bunch of different puzzle solving abilities. So if you're that kind of gamer, you like to solve puzzles, man, that game is awesome.
So here's the thing. Unravel 2 is out now.
Wow.
They announced it yesterday, and it is out.
Here it is.
That's exactly what they did.
That's cool.
So if you're kind of artsy, if you like great environments and cinematic music and kind of some cool physics, in a platformer. Unravel 2 is out and pretty exciting. So that's E3. E3's cool. I'm pumped. What else are we talking about? Oh,
sad news.
Not pumped. Yes. So listen, Anthony Bourdain is one of my heroes. I've followed his career since Kitchen Confidential days. Yeah. His first show, which was called A Cook's Tour, was on the Food Network.
Yeah.
And was absolutely fantastic. One of my favorite episodes of TV anywhere is the episode of A Cook's Tour where Bourdain goes to the French Laundry in California.
Okay.
Thomas Keller's restaurant, and Thomas Keller just blows the doors off the place for him. Makes him a 32 course custom menu with a nicotine infused custard for dessert for Bourdain, and just knocks them out. It's a great episode. So I don't know if it's on YouTube or anything. If I find it, I'll put it in the show notes. But sure. It's a cook's tour where they're at the French Laundry in California at Thomas Keller's restaurant, and it is absolutely a phenomenal, because you can see how emotional Bourdain got about eating amazing food, and yes. I think that's where I get some of that from, is the idea that food is something that connects people, and reminds us all of our shared humanity and stuff like that. And I think that Tony did that better than almost anyone. He reminded us all of the things we had in common, despite all of the, crappiness around us. Everyone can sit down and have a good meal together and enjoy it, and should more often. And I think the world would be a lot better place if we could all just sit down and eat together every once in a while. And enjoy
really good food.
Special.
Yes.
So I've been pretty bummed out. It's funny, I've gotten worse, more bummed out about it as the day has went on, and as the days have went on now. Yeah. Since I found out, because now you're getting a lot of articles about just how absolutely great he was, and how someone with such a rough exterior was so inspiring to so many people. So it's a big loss.
Big time.
And it reminds you that just because you're successful and famous and rich doesn't mean you got it all together. So hopefully this reminds people to reach out and talk to people and share and love and be compassionate and be kind, because you never know. So talk to someone,
for sure.
And I'm not saying the people who are struggling. I'm saying I'm taking it on myself. If I see someone that looks down, or and just in general, I want to try to talk to people more, have more positive connections with people, I think. So I've been thinking about it a little bit, I guess.
That's a good takeaway from that. I mean, from the sadness of that. This article from U.S. News, that's why we were bringing this up, basically says that we should make summer vacation actually shorter because it's negatively affecting our poor students, the students that are economically disadvantaged, because they don't have the access that many of our other middle class or upper class students have, as far as to educational type of things, Mike. I'm not sure exactly how what they're saying within the article itself, but we're going to link that article there, and basically it just says that it further makes that divide between our rich and our poor students. That's what the article is claiming, as far as within it. It just came out on June 7th, the article, so it's very recent. I thought it was a really interesting take on it, though I guess. And really the article went in a multitude of ways. One of the things that it said was many of our poor students eat breakfast and lunch at school, and right. they may that may be their two main meals of the day that they're guaranteed, and they know that each day they're going to get those meals. And then so then the summertime comes around and those things are in flux again. Do you know what I mean? So I could see that, but I didn't know how that had to do with whether or not they would perform as well the following year. You know what I mean? So basically this article is saying summer vacation comes around, you actually as a student will lose all kinds of information, and the whole first month of school, your teachers have to review everything,
right.
Which I have a hard time with that, but maybe there is data that supports that. What do you think?
Well, I mean, so it's also talking about parents that spend money on like outside stuff like camps and stuff like that, which, goes without saying is something that people who have more money can afford to do and people with less couldn't. So it makes sense. And so they're speaking to that also in the sense that it keeps kids engaged. Like it keeps their minds on, like they're going still. So they're constantly, still using their minds and thinking about things. And so they come back to school still in that sort of mode. Even if it's a little bit different, it doesn't necessarily have to be academic. You don't have to take your kid to a math camp.
Sure.
You can take them to a robotics camp or a Minecraft camp, which are popular now.
Yeah.
But it's still keeping students' heads kind of going and thinking. And so what you have is students who don't have the money for that, are spending most of their time, and I'm not saying I have a problem with this, are spending their time just doing other things like just playing or watching TV or whatever. I actually, it's funny because I read an article recently that talked about parents that ask whether teachers are preparing like packets for them for the summer.
Horrible.
And it's like, no, go for a walk with your kid. Teach them about the trees and the leaves and, spend time with your children.
Make connections.
Not making them do math
on a worksheet.
So they can, it's ridiculous. So, 3 months is a long time. It's a long time to be off. There's definitely a stronger argument for the year being shorter than this, maybe. Certainly competing against other nations in terms of, the global market and stuff like that. Shorter school year nations don't compete as well as nations that have, schooling all the time. So there's a an economics argument to the negativity of having a longer summer holiday in a shorter school year. So there is interesting arguments to be had. So it's definitely worth conversation. I like my summer. I like we're going to be busy this summer, man, and we're doing a lot of cool stuff. And
and I was just going to say, I'm happy that my kids have the summer off, and I don't try to force them into more learning. Though I see my kids laying around and they are reading their books that they are passionate about reading. Right. Do they play a little bit more video games than they would in the normal things? Yes.
Of course they would.
Do they play outside more than they would during the school year? Well, especially in Minnesota, that's an absolute yes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's you too in Canada. You're going to have that opportunity to be able to get outside. So being able to get away from the classroom life, the school life, I think that's a great thing. And then my kids then get a sparkle in their eye about school coming up. Instead of it being like a dread, they're like, hey, we get to go back there, and my friends, and we get to do, that social part that they missed, as far as that and those connections. They're ready to go back. And I think that same thing happens with us. You know what I mean? As teachers, we get that inkling. We're like, yes, we're ready to go back. We're passionate. We're like, we have some cool ideas. We're ready to implement, and so on.
100%. We bought Isaac a Wacom tablet, a drawing tablet.
Yeah.
For his birthday, and if you don't think that's learning, then we got to have a conversation, because he's going to be doing a lot of art, a lot of drawing, and using Photoshop and stuff like that this summer. And
I'm
excited.
Let me know how those are too, because
they're historically amazing. They're the leader in terms of quality, right? So we're excited to see what he does with it. He's excited about it. He loves to draw. He's a very good artist for his age, and we're looking forward to it. So no definitive answer on whether the school week should be shorter from us or not, I guess. No. But certainly do what you can with it, and have some fun too, because that's important. When we come back, we're going to recap the results from the Ontario election, share some awesome resources for elections that might inspire you to bring politics and elections into the classroom, and have a conversation again about arming teachers.
The end of the school year is finally here, and we have an awesome professional development opportunity. Badge Summit 2018 is happening at Columbia College on June 23rd in Chicago, Illinois. We have 3 tickets to give away. If you're listening to this ad and want a chance to win a free ticket, all you need to do is follow us on Twitter @OnEducationPod. Go to iTunes and give us a rating and a review. Just send us a DM with the screenshot on Twitter. For more information, go to badgesummit.weebly.com.
Okay, welcome back. Well, there was an election, Glenn.
Oh, I know. You're going to tell us about it.
Well, yes. So there was an election. The NDP did not win. There was some interesting data coming out of the polling in the last week or so that talked a lot about the distribution of votes. This is very much a familiar argument to the Electoral College / popular vote issue that faced Democrats. What I think we had now that being said, the NDP also did not win the popular vote, so they did not get more votes than the progressive conservative. So the result is there's a progressive conservative government, majority government. They won more seats than anyone else, and hey, Doug Ford is going to be the premier of Ontario. God help us. And the NDP came in second. I believe 33 seats. I should have, pulled that up before we started, but whatever. It's around 33 seats. We were running as high as 40, but the majority was, I believe, 63. So. Not really, close, I guess. One of the problems the NDP faced is that a majority of their vote is concentrated, very similar to Democrats, in urban areas. Suburbs were dominated by PC voters, and medium-sized towns were dominated by PC voters. Downtown Toronto, there's probably about 5 or 6 ridings. Those all went NDP. Hamilton, which has typically been an NDP stronghold, went NDP. And Northern Ontario tends to go NDP. But no, it was a tough election. Pekka also did not win. The North Barrie riding also did not win. Barrie has been typically a conservative stronghold, even like in the 2015 election, when basically Trudeau dominated the whole country virtually. Yeah. PCs, not PCs, Conservative Party of Canada candidates won both Barrie ridings in 2015, which was weird. Not weird to you if you live here, but certainly weird when you look at an electoral map that's all red, and then there's literally 2 blue dots just north of Toronto, and that's us.
Dang.
Yeah, yes. You're telling me you don't have to live here. So, but listen, it was an awesome experience. It was an awesome fight. Pekka was a fantastic candidate. We raised more money than we've ever raised in Barrie. Which again is a historically conservative riding. We got more votes, I think, than we've ever gotten, and he, did super well, and I couldn't be prouder. Unfortunately, I'm the only guy with work left to do because I'm the money guy.
Oh,
so
yeah.
now I get to write checks and pay bills and do the audit.
Sure.
Which is terrible, but I was happy to be part of it as much as I was, and I think that as far as how this relates to education, I think the problem that we're going to face is that Doug Ford is not going to find as many budget shortfalls and inconsistencies as he thinks he's going to find. And so, when he says we're going to pay for all of the things that I say we're going to pay for by finding ways to cut inefficiencies in the system, and he frames that as respecting the taxpayers, but the problem is that I don't think he's going to find as much as he thinks there is. So then he's going to fall back on cutting what conservatives typically cut, which is social programs and social services and public service. Mm-hmm. And so that's, teachers, teachers and doctors and hospitals and nurses and mental health. And we're really worried about that. That's it's not. This isn't a union thing. This is, this is people taking care of people, and that's typically what Canadians have been the most proud about doing. And we're a little nervous here. We'll see what happens. You came across this thing about Federal School Safety Commission. I want you to go ahead and give us a rundown on that.
Yeah. So there was a meeting the first meeting, I think, of the Federal School Safety Commission, and I put in our notes that DeVos didn't attend the meeting, of course.
Why would she? Why?
She was in Europe gathering ammo for why public schools don't work, supposedly. And basically the takeaways from the meeting are, number one, that we shouldn't arm teachers. So giving a teacher a weapon is not a solution. And it could cause, so as we've talked about, so many problems that come along with that. And then number two, that we should properly fund mental health services in schools. Many schools don't have school counselors. Many schools here don't have our social worker that actually works within the school and then plays that liaison ability between social services and social work inside the school, to be able to go ahead and give those proper services to our students that need it the most. And all of these students obviously had mental health issues, and being able to go ahead and address those things very early on and give them ability to be able to go ahead and do something, early on, there's at least that's a solution. But arming teachers was, of course, on the top of the list. It said that shouldn't even be considered for a multitude of reasons, which is what we've been talking about here anyway, too.
Right. Oh, of course. Funding mental health seems like a no-brainer, doesn't it?
Funding mental health should be something that we do, like you just described. As far as in Canada, we envy you guys' social care. It's just your program as far as healthcare. But one of the things that we even lag further behind in the United States is the properly funding mental health and the ability for people to be able to seek that out and to be able to get it in a reasonable amount of time. So right. It's such an important topic that a lot of people do. It's kind of like the taboo topic that it shouldn't be taboo. Mental health is one of the things that we all need, and it should be part of again, it's a cultural kind of thing. We should accept that's an okay thing to go ahead and talk to mental health professionals about all kinds of things to make sure that they can address things like depression that we talked about, as far as Anthony Bourdain, or these kids that have they need to talk to professionals and be able to go ahead and have some develop some coping skills because they have rough lives.
Absolutely. It seems so obvious to me. I'm running out of words for stuff like this because it just seems like it's a no-brainer. Like, why is this even up for debate? Is this really something we're going to argue about? That there should be more funding for mental health and education?
Yeah.
And that teachers shouldn't have guns? It's just, I mean...
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy.
It seems ridiculous, but Yeah, it's the middle of the argument. It's crazy that's where it's at.
Absolutely wild. So, yeah, that's all we have for policy and politics. When we come back, we'll chat about something a little bit more light. The Worldwide Developers Conference is just wrapping up, and the keynote happened this week, and we'll talk about what that might mean for educators.
On Education is brought to you by Audible.
And Audible wants to give you guys a free audiobook download. Free, Glenn. Free.
Free. We love free.
Free's the best price. So if you go to audibletrial.com/oneducation, that's audibletrial.com/oneducation, and sign up for a trial, you can get a free audiobook on us.
Yes,
you should go do that right now. That would be amazing. All right, well, welcome back to the podcast. This week, Worldwide Developers Conference, Apple's yearly conference dedicated to software and apps, was this week. And the keynote is what typically kicks it off. And it basically is a chance for Apple to talk about all of the cool things that are going to be coming. I have a bit of a list. I'm going to slowly go down them because there's some really interesting stuff going on here. And some things that might be good for you as a teacher, especially if you're using iPads or have a one-to-one program like I do. So the first thing that was super interesting in this keynote was iOS 12, so the newest version of the Apple iPad and phone operating system will be out. And one of the really neat things was that all the devices that are currently running iOS 11 will also run iOS 12. This is something that has bothered educators and districts for a long, long time. The idea that every time Apple releases a new version of iOS, a whole bunch of devices kind of fall off the back that can't be updated. And while they can be potentially used, I suppose, they can't necessarily have the same features as other devices. So this means that if you have a whole bunch of devices running iOS 11, you'll be able to run iOS 12, and that's super helpful. It means that at least you get spared from spending money for another year.
That
we
is
just
nice.
bought. Yeah. Well, I mean, not everyone we've talked about this a million times. Not every school, not every district has the same amount of money. And if a school or district just dumped a whole bunch of money into buying iPads, I think it's a reasonable expectation for them to last at least a little while without being
Absolutely.
obsoleted.
How about just obsolete?
Becoming
obsolete.
Rendered obsolete by Apple. I am a
yes. I love it.
I'm a lyrical gangster. The new a new app. So I actually, out of all the things, it's crazy the things I get excited about, I guess. But one of the things I got geeked up the most about was this measuring app, this AR measuring app. So new app. I think it's just called Measure, which is very typically Apple. And you turn it on, and you can hold your iPad up to anything. They had a suitcase in the example they did at the keynote, and you can measure things in AR. So you start in the corner, you press on the screen, it creates a measuring point, and then you move your iPad down to the other corner and touch your iPad, and it creates a line, and it shows you how long that line is. And then if you add on more lines, you can measure the volume of the That's suitcase, awesome. Or whatever. It was pretty cool, and I have to say that you could use this in so many applications. I in my other previous life, I was in industrial sales, and I can't tell you how many times I could have used an app like this to measure a length of pipe or a length of wire mesh or something like that. If I was looking to quote someone something, there's so many industrial salespeople or people who have to measure things for their jobs constantly. construction workers and stuff like that are going to be using their phones, because it's going to potentially even, it would be awesome if it saved measurements in the background, or like took a picture of it with the measurements on it.
Yes.
There would be some pretty rad applications for school and for work in this, and I got really geeked up about a measuring app. I was like, what? This is awesome. And I tell you, it was one of those things that, we haven't been like crazy excited about AR. I mean, I love AR and I think it's neat, but we haven't like went nuts about it. In one of our very first our very first podcast,
I think it was, yes,
was about the Apple education event, and we spent some time talking about AR. And I'll tell you that this is one of those ways where you could actually get people using AR all the time, potentially.
Yes.
I mean, you'll have whole math units in especially the younger grades dedicated to measuring things. And imagine being able to go outside with your iPad and do like scavenger hunts where you take an iPad around and the teacher says, go measure the length of the crossbar of the monkey bars.
Yes.
What measurement is that? Right? I mean, you could do whole like assignments outside measuring things. It'd be the best. I got so excited thinking about some of the cool things you could do. Just measuring things with an iPad. Who would have thought? How come this wasn't happening before? I mean, maybe it was.
That's what I was thinking too. Yes.
That guy, the guy the person, the group that made the measuring app for AR that already exists that no one knows about, is really angry right now because I'm talking about it being the best thing ever, and he's like, we have that already.
It's been out 10 years.
Sorry, man. Sucks. It's typical Apple, right? To steal someone else's idea and just,
revamp the idea.
It's called
exactly.
Measure for iPad. Anyways, that was cool. The Lego. Did you watch any of this at all, I guess?
I did not. But I read the show notes here, and this next section looks very, very interesting.
So I gotta find it on YouTube or something like that and see if I can link it in the show notes, because certainly what Lego's about to do with AR is absolutely mind-blowing. And again, something with some pretty cool potential. There's going to be AR sets that can be activated, triggered by the complete set once you build it. And you hold your iPad up to it with this Lego app, and it will like form a scene around a living scene of activity and animation around the one Lego piece that you built.
Okay.
So in this case, there was like a building, and when you activated the app, it created like a little neighborhood around the building with other buildings and cars and people walking on the street, and you could see it all in your iPad, but obviously none of it was actually there. You could like you could control it with like little Lego men, and they dropped like Batman onto the scene, and you could run around with Batman and then jump into a car and then drive the car around the little neighborhood. And
that's crazy.
I'll tell you, it was pretty exciting stuff. I got a little geeked up about it, and I think that they're just getting started with this stuff, but the potential is pretty astounding. I think you could do some really, really neat stuff, especially if you could like create the idea of creating your own, like Lego's about creating your own things, or at least it used to be about building your own things. Now it's a lot more about building the thing that's on the box and that's it.
Okay.
But certainly if we could get back to a place where kids were just building whatever they wanted, but then being able to take that thing they built and pump it into maybe a predetermined scene, AR scene, where they can then interact with that thing they built. It doesn't necessarily have to be the thing on the box. I think you could open up a whole world of opportunity to explore not only just building, but creativity on like a totally different level.
Yeah, totally agree, man.
It would be pretty neat. And then imagine if they linked in the ability to record video.
Oh yeah,
from
be able to record the
app.
scene, exactly.
Right, and then you could get kids building scenes with Lego and then creating videos with narrative and stuff in them from their AR. I mean, just my mind goes crazy thinking about how you could use this stuff in school. So hopefully they're listening. I'm sure they're not.
Hopefully they are.
Lego, if you're listening, I'm available, and I got lots of ideas. Siri needs a lot of work. Siri is terrible, generally speaking. So they're talking a lot about Siri upgrading it,
nice.
Which might be helpful for students if they can like set up reminders for due dates. There was this interesting example with Siri shortcuts and auto scripts, which was a lot like the If This Then That website, or Automator, if you've ever used the Automator app, which is very probably underused, but it's also very complicated to use if you look at it. Have you ever seen this? You've used the Automator app on a MacBook?
I have
even
not.
Know what I'm talking about?
Nope, I do not. So
there's an app.
Explain it to us.
So there's an app in default, like it's part of the OS, called Automator. And when you go in there, there's a whole bunch of like macros and scripts that you can run.
Okay.
So I used it once to resize about 1,000 photos all at once. So I said, pull the photo from my photos folder, change the size of all of them to this, and then save them all with the prefix added to the file name of resized, and then run, and it runs the script. And it did all that, and it took about an hour to open a photo, resize it, save it, close it. But so I don't have to do that myself, right?
Of course, yeah.
So this is built in to MacBooks. If you didn't know about Automator, you should look at it. I mean, it's a little complicated, but I'm sure that there's resources online for how to do it. But Siri is going to have some like shortcuts or auto scripts related to apps that you've installed on your phone. So what would be a good example of this?
So you would basically say something and they would do a series of tasks versus just doing one simple thing, like when I say call mom and it can't do that.
Wow.
It's like,
that's a whole other
rephrase your
story.
question.
That's
call
why Siri's
mom.
terrible. But something like, hey Siri, I'd like to go to so-and-so restaurant at 4 p.m. on Saturday, and I'd like to go with Glen. Mm-hmm. And so then, you know what Siri just did?
Did it read all that?
It did.
It was like,
hey Siri,
Mike, I can do all of that.
Tavern. I'm talking to Siri on my phone right now. I did that thing that you're not supposed to do on podcasts, and that's activate Siri on the podcast. I'm sorry for anyone's phones who just turned on and tried to book an appointment for dinner with Glen. Sort of.
Yes.
Glen will go to dinner with all of you, and it's on him.
Perfect. Yes, it's at...
So
join me at ISTE. I'll be there.
Yes. Actually, yes. Yeah, I totally activated Siri. That's funny.
That was a good one.
It's funny. It's the first time Siri's actually responded when I actually said, "Hey Siri." So that's something.
That's something.
I actually bought a Google Home the other day because I hate Siri so much. So I have it in my bedroom, and I'm getting another one for the living room, and it works really well.
Good.
In fact, oh yeah. So anyway, Siri needs an update. I'm sure Siri knows Siri needs an update and just doesn't like to talk about it, and that's why she doesn't talk to me anymore. So these scripts will go a long way to, booking dinner with Glen. And mapping my way there.
Tasks, yes.
And telling me when I'm going to need to leave and putting it on the calendar and doing that all at once. That's kind of the the goal. So you don't have to say, do this and then stop and then do this and then stop and then do this. It'll do all of those things at the same time, which is awesome.
I love
That's
it.
kind of the way it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I sort of missed this big part about parental controls because, I was in the middle of a class. The kids love watching these things while they're working. And they'll look up every once in a while and go, "Oh, that's neat," and then they'll go back down and work. I had it on when the older kids were in my room. They'll look up and they'll go, "Oh, cool," and then they'll go back to work. So we were watching it in my room, but I was helping a student at the time. The parental control things came up, so I kind of missed what they were talking about. But from what I gather, you're going to be able to limit device use on phones tied to your child's accounts and stuff like that. So this is helpful, I suppose. We are really going to try to limit Isaac's device time. We want him outside a lot more. We didn't spend like $7,000 on our backyard for no reason. So he should probably get his butt out there and play in it and go swimming.
Of course.
So we're gonna look at this when it comes out. I guess it's not out in the fall, but I have beta access, so I think I'll
test
probably
it out.
Yeah, for sure. The Memojis. Memojis seem fun.
Memoji.
So this is like Bitmojis. You've actually asked me about Bitmojis before.
Yes.
So the
Memoji.
yeah, so Memoji is the Apple-fied version of this. Basically, you're just making an emoji character, and then you can like get that character to do a bunch of things, or look different, or wear different hats, or show facial expressions. But it's all with a character that you make that can potentially look like you. I mean, I don't think anyone wants a pasty white bald emoji, or even to look at that. But I'll make one from the chest up or whatever, and people will be fine with that, I suppose. So Memojis are cool, and group FaceTime.
Yes.
Finally a competitor to Skype or Google Hangouts.
Yeah, this is about time.
This is about keeping people in the ecosystem.
Yes, we need this.
That's all this is.
32 people in a group. Yes, that would be kind of annoying, but I could definitely see. Yeah, I mean, instead of Google Hangouts, I could just click a button, get everybody on the FaceTime call done.
Right. I bet you Google especially the Hangouts team, they just sat there and went, "We've had this for like 10 years."
I know.
You guys suck.
Circa 2008.
But they do it with like the biggest splash, like it's typical Apple, right? Group FaceTime. Now,
could you imagine this happening? Yes,
coming soon.
Use it.
We're disrupting. I love the words disrupt. We are disrupting talking. Disrupt talking with group FaceTime. And the Hangouts guys just look at each other and want to throw things at the TV.
Exactly.
Because this is all about keeping people in the ecosystem.
Exactly.
But hey, listen, in its defense, if you are a one-to-one school and have a whole bunch of iPads and a whole bunch of Apple devices, then this is something you've needed for a while and haven't had. So,
yes,
awesome. I mean, it's good. Thank you for doing something you should have done 5 years ago. But, I'm glad we have it now. Last one. The last one is probably the most important one of them all. And that's that the Apple Watch operating system is getting the podcast app. So now you can listen to On Education on your watch. Yes? Super important. I think that's the most important thing. No, not really. Anyways, it's cool. It's all right. I don't know where... I mean, do the watches have like a speaker? I guess they do, right? Because you can talk on them now, right?
Yeah, they have a speaker.
Here you go. So you can listen to the...
But everybody's going to go wireless, everybody, though, isn't it? Yeah, everybody has
I guess if you have the earbuds, the AirPods, right? Those can connect to the watch.
Or any Bluetooth speaker, probably. Any Bluetooth headphones.
Right, but what I'm saying is you wouldn't even need your phone because the watch takes calls now and stuff like that. And now, like, you could have the wireless earbuds and your watch, and you could just listen to the podcast through your watch, which is okay, cool. Yeah, I wonder how much data it'll hold. I guess there's storage sizes too for these watches. I actually, believe it or not, owned an Apple Watch at one point and sold it when I switched to Samsung at one point. But I'm back in the cult, and happy to be here.
Welcome back.
Yeah. So drinking the Kool-Aid again. Anyways, that's the Apple event. There's lots of cool stuff here. I know we like to make fun of it a little, but it's fun to make fun of it. But there's some really good developments here for teachers in school. So hopefully you take a look at the keynote. We'll post that because I think that's publicly available now. Put that in the show notes. And when we come back, we will talk to Brian Costello about his book, The Teacher's Journey, and about anything else he wants to talk about.
Friends, On Podcast Media is getting set to launch not one, but 2 new podcasts this summer. And we're excited to tell you about the first one, On Politics. On Politics is hosted by politician, professor, and human rights lawyer Craig Scott. On Politics will take deep dives into policy and politics. You definitely come away learning something every week. To stay up to date with On Politics, follow the show's Twitter account, @OnPoliticsPod. Welcome back, everyone. We want to welcome Brian Costello to the show. Brian, really excited to have you on today. And I've been reading your book, The Teacher's Journey. I absolutely love it, man. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your location.
So, Glenn, thanks so much. My name is Brian Costello. I have been in education for, this is one of those things every time I think about it, I have to count it up in my head, which means I've been in it for a decent amount of time. 11 years. Nice. I think this is or 12, maybe it's 12. But you'd think I would know this, but so I started I didn't start teaching. I didn't go to college to be a teacher. I went to college to learn things and to play soccer and kind of just be an independent person for a little while, which seems like everybody kind of hates on that nowadays. And I think that was really important for me. I learned a lot about learning and getting and growing. So I didn't go to college to be a teacher. I got out of college, had no idea what I wanted to do. Just knew there was 3 or 4 things I definitely didn't want to do. Be a doctor or a lawyer. Yeah. I was I don't want to be a lawyer. I didn't go to school for doctor. I could have been a lawyer. I was a philosophy major and a political science major. And I was that would have been the normal thing to do. But
lots of work as a lawyer these days.
That is true. But I knew that wasn't for me. I had no idea what else. So I went got to school, went into business. I became a financial advisor. It was quite literally the worst job I've ever had. I know there are a number of people who probably love that job, but for me, it was awful. I just hated every minute of it. Almost every minute of it. It was not for me. And after about a year working for the company I was with, my fiance at the time, my wife now, she knew I was miserable, and she said, "You just do something else." She's like, "You can wait tables until you find another job." So I quit that job and went back to waiting tables, which I've been doing since I was 14.
Sure.
And I still do now.
Totally respect that.
It's it's part of growing up where I live. I live in southern New Jersey, right by the beach, and it's part of it's part of the culture around here. So if you grow up around here, you work. Most people work at restaurants or at service related industries. I think it builds a lot of character too, so it's good.
Absolutely.
Then I went. She goes, "You really like kids. You should try subbing." So I called up my mom, who's a teacher, and she talked to her superintendent, and he got me a job as a building sub. So that's kind of how I got started in school. And the first day, I write the stories in the book. It's also a story I tell a lot of times. I walked in the building, And they're like, so you're going to direct traffic, help kids get to their classrooms. I said, I've only been here for like 30 seconds. I don't even know where I'm going. Exactly. So I just stood in the hallway. I'm like, go that way. And these kids are crying because they're lost. And like their first time in this school. And like they're little, like, and I'm just like, go that way. Find the teachers down there. They'll tell you their names.
They'll help you.
And then from there, I unpacked boxes of books and delivered them to classrooms. And before I left there that day, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. Like that was it. That was what I had to do. So
wow.
Since then, I've worked in just about every job in a school district except for administration, and I've helped out with the custodial staff. I've helped out with the cafeteria staff. I've been a sub, I've been an aide, I've been a one-on-one, I've been a kindergarten, first and second grade teacher. I currently teach 7th and 8th grade digital innovations, and awesome. I'll be moving to robotics next year.
That is awesome. So I was reading your book, and I immediately connected with this statement. I'm going to quote you here, and it says, "During all the ups and downs throughout my career, the most important catalyst for my success has been people." And like many of us, you've gone to Twitter to connect with other educators who, as you put in your book, who are different, than maybe the person just your colleagues that you work with, and you wanted to push the status quo. So for teachers that don't use Twitter to connect with and share and learn from other educators, why is this so important?
And so when I think about what I've gotten, what Twitter has helped me with, what it's helped me find is it's helped me find people who understand what I want to do in school and education. They understand my point of view. They're people who I can bounce ideas off of, and because we view things in a similar way,
sure.
They can provide me with some suggestions that I don't get elsewhere. And those other people are important too. So, it's important to have people on all sides of the coin. And one of the things I try to point out and I try to say to people is that it doesn't have to be Twitter. It could be anywhere. Wherever it is that you can find good people to help you grow, to help you reflect, to help be in your corner, to find those good people to have. If you find them on Facebook or Pinterest or Google Plus or wherever you find them, find good people somewhere. Find them in your building, find them in your town, but find people outside of that too, because if you don't, you're really limiting yourself. And it was very isolating for me as a new teacher not to have people who had thought about teaching and learning the way that I thought about teaching and learning.
Yes. And connected with that, in the book you discuss the vital importance of mentoring in education. And there's a quote here that you have. It says, "The education profession does not do a good enough job of creating and supporting the next generation of educators." So can you tell us about the importance of, I think a bulk of your book is about coaching and mentoring.
Yeah. So when I get into, and how I kind of get into coaching and mentoring is this idea of giving back, right? So, and it comes back around to that point of people and finding people and what people have given me. So throughout my career, people have made it possible for me to do the things that I've been able to do. They've given me opportunities and advice and guidance and mentored and everything else. And so I see mentoring and coaching as a way for us to give back and help develop the next generation of educators. When I look at what we do in education on the whole and in general, when I talk to teachers, I've done a lot of talking to teachers about what mentoring looks like in their school district. And there are some school districts that do it very well. But on the whole, we do a really bad job at mentoring. We don't really get the concept as a profession. I feel like we miss the mark on a really large scale.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as far as, throughout my career, whether or not that actually occurred. And that happens too rarely as far as people stepping up and really have a developed program to really mentor you through the ups and downs of the beginning of a teaching career, as you describe in your book. And going along with that, there is that
that we don't have too many people who are willing to take on student teachers. And you have a quote here by McGuire, and it says, some of the state's most highly skilled veteran teachers are reluctant to take on the extra responsibility of hosting a student teacher because they've just been asked to do so many other things. So I thought back to my teaching career, and I taught Spanish for 20 years before I took on this instructional coach position, and I only took on one student teacher, and it was for a variety of different reasons. I can make all the excuses I want, but how do we get more people, master teachers, to take on these pre-service teachers?
I think it's a big part of this culture, right? So recognizing that what we have, there's this myth that we make ourselves, that we are self-created somehow, that our hard work is all it takes, right? That all we need to be successful is to work hard. And it's absolutely ridiculous, right? So if you can continue to think that through, you can continue to pretend that nobody's helped you, but you've been given opportunities, you've been given the ability to do so many things, or even just permission to do so many things, right? And so when I look at, how do we build the profession up in a way that we are, always looking to give back and to build other people up, I think that comes from developing that generation of new teachers that value mentoring, that understand what it is, and what it's not, and how to identify your mentors, and how to also to build up good potential mentors, good people in the profession who want to give to others, because ultimately, if we're not doing that, we're selling short the next generation of teachers and our profession as a whole.
Absolutely. Mike and I have talked, we talked to Rafranz Davis about this exact same question that we're about to ask you here. And it comes up in your book. And basically, we just talk about teachers. We're often overwhelmed and definitely overworked. We work on evenings and weekends, and we bring stuff home, and we're working during the summer too, as you just described, and even the evenings or the weekends or whatever might be on other jobs. And so there's a quote here that you have in your book. It says, work-life balance is a myth created from a misguided understanding of what balance means. And so can you tell us about what you mean by this?
Yeah, absolutely. So starting with the first part of when we think about what balance is, we have this static impression of balance as being some stationary thing that you have, right? You don't have balance. Balance is a verb, right? It's a thing that you do. So balance is not going to be a 50-50 thing all the time. And the idea that work is somehow going to be this 8-hour period of your day and you cut it off no matter what at this point in time and you walk home, like if you really love what you do, that's not normal. That's it, even if you don't love what you do, like even in jobs that you don't love, when you finish the day, you go home to your family, that's still a part of who you are. So to try and pretend that it's not, to try and isolate your life into different pockets, isn't really healthy. Right? It doesn't lead you to appreciate any of those or really allow you to embrace and really be present in the places where you are. So when I talk about balance, I'm talking about not, some static moment in time, some snapshot where magically my life has been 50-50 today and I spent half my day with my family and half my day at work. No, that's not it. That doesn't work. That's not a thing, right? Balance is about being present where you are, about planning, about thinking about what you need, and where you need to spend the most time. And the thing I try to point out to people the most about balance is it's about gradually readjusting to the middle, right? It's not a scale that levels at 50-50. It's the tightrope walker, right? They're rarely ever 50-50 on the tightrope. They're constantly juggling from one side to the other. And as long as you don't fall off, you're doing all right.
It's funny. I have two interesting thoughts related to this. I guess the first one is a quote from I don't know where I know where I think of it recently. I'm not going to mention it, but the quote was, "Do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life." That's the first thing I thought of when you're talking about balance. I'm working harder than I've ever worked in my life right now, and I'm spending easily 25 hours a week doing this and things related to this. And I've been telling people constantly the last couple months, since March basically, that I'm doing the best work of my life right now. The second thing was that just last night, Glen and myself and Steve Isaacs were playing Stardew Valley together on Steam, and it's funny. You got 3 games-based learning educators in a room trying to play a video game, and all that I could think about was the ways that we could use this to help other teachers learn about games-based learning, and how we could, grow, 3 dudes that love to play games and like talking about games and like sharing about how teachers can play games, how we could grow that into something where people might actually be interested in watching it. So it turned into something where we were literally just playing a video game, but it ended up being something where it was like, how can we turn this into quote unquote, I guess, work? Because it was something we love to do, but we love our jobs. We love what we're doing, and we can't see ourselves doing anything else. So, of course, we found a way to bring it into our work life. And that feels like balance to me too, a little bit, in the sense that I was enjoying thinking of. I got really excited. I sent Glenn like 15 messages last night after we were done streaming about, dude, do you know what we could do with this? What we could do with Steve, and like play games and talk about it and share it with teachers. Anyways, I totally get a lot of what you're saying there. It is as much a frame of mind as it is anything. Maybe
that's true to a degree. I mean, there are days where no matter how much you love what you do, it's going to be work. There are some days that you go into work and it's just you just don't feel it, right? So how do you make that work? How do you manage to be present where you are? I think there's 3 ways you can love what you do to make it work, right? You love when you're teaching, you love your content, you love the people around you, and you love yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And those 3 things all matter. And if you can't find one of those things each day, then it's going to be hard, right? So some days you love the lesson you're teaching. It's just so much fun for you. And some days you just have to love yourself enough to go in there and put in the effort because you respect yourself. And other days it's for the people around you, right? Like
totally. I'm getting a lot of credit these days for making a year-long video game project, but hey, newsflash, it's the end of the year, and now I have to mark 45 video games.
Hey, that means you get to play 45 video games. So I mean, there's the upside to that, right?
It is that is what it means. Yes, it's
in some ways, yes. It's about finding a way to be and love where you're at, and to really be immersed in the thing that you are doing. So when I'm with my kids and with my family, do I sometimes check my my notifications on my phone? I mean, sometimes I try to turn them off all the time, so I don't see them. Like sometimes when I'll peek at them, but for the most part, I try not to, especially when we're out. I try not to even take my phone out of my pocket.
Sure.
Makes sense. Whereas, when I'm at work, I'm focused on work. And then when my kids are asleep, then that's when you'll find me online the most, when you'll, when I record podcasts, when I write, that's when I do that stuff is after, typically, I mean, sometimes I'll make time for it during the day, like this particular example where, this was a good time and it worked out. But most of the time it's, kids are asleep, everybody's done, and I'll spend 2.5 hours. People say, well, why don't you go to bed? Like it's 9 to 11:30. Why are you up? Most of the people I talk to nowadays are on the West Coast because they're awake. But it's like, well, why don't you go to bed early, get some extra sleep? This is the time that I have. Like, I don't want to take 2.5, 3 hours out of my day when I could be spending that with my kids. I have 2 young kids. They're 2 kids under the age of 6. Like I have a 5-year-old and an 8-month-old, and I don't want to miss it.
Sure.
So being present where I'm at is huge for me. and my wife would probably still say, you work way too much, you work all the time. But the reality is I try not to do that when I'm not. I try to do that work when they're not there, when they're sleeping, when they're, whatever, out for the day, doing whatever. Like, that's when I usually will get the stuff done.
That's awesome. So at the end of your book, Brian, you have this call to action. I think it's the name of the chapter, where the teacher is the hero of their own story. So what advice do you have for teachers so they can navigate their own journey through teaching?
So I think that there's two really important parts to this. The first part is to recognize that you're not someone else's hero, right? Everybody gets to be the hero in their own story. So
love that.
Your job is not to be someone's savior, to be their hero. Your job is to be their guide, their helper, their mentor. You have the choice, right? You can either help them or you can hinder them. You can either be useful in their journey and helping them to figure out how to be their own hero, or you can make it worse. You can make it harder. You can be the villain. And for me, as often as I try to choose to be the person who helps, to be someone who makes it easier for other people. Am I always successful? Maybe not. I can't always guarantee that I will be, but the goal is, one thing is to try to make other people successful, because that's really what teaching is all about anyway. And then the other piece is collect good people. You can never have enough good people in your corner, in your life, for anything from the small stuff to the biggest things. When things hit the fan, when something's bad in your life and you need somebody, knowing you have good people in your corner that you can call up or reach out to at any time, anywhere, and say, hey, I need help. I need this. I'm struggling. I am, and those are the people who check in on you. And those are the people who say, hey, how's everything going? Haven't heard from you in a while. You don't have to talk to them every day. They don't have to be like your best friend where you see them every day or once a week, or you call each other for a half an hour for every Friday.
Sure.
It's just, you need to have those people around and know they're there. It's how you develop mentors to begin with, but also it's about that's how you survive in not just education, but in life, is to have good people and know they're there, and know that when you need them, they're there for you. And when they need you, you can be there for them.
I love that. So thank you so much for joining us today, Brian. Absolutely awesome conversation here. Tell our audience about where they can purchase your book and how they can connect with you.
So The Teacher's Journey is available on Amazon, and I imagine everywhere else books are sold. I don't know if people buy books anywhere else, but it is available in other places. It's got a paperback and ebook. I sign iPads, so if you buy the ebook version, I will etch my name right in the back of it, and you can check. You can find out more about the Teacher's Journey at CostelloCorner.com, where I keep information about the podcast, my blog, the book, my two children's books, the Will McGill series, awesome. And all of my educational training materials are available on there. And last but not least, the Global Audience Project, which this summer will be going through a major revamp. I'm going to just take a look at what I do with it and turn it on its head and basically find a new way to use that space to amplify projects that kids are doing and share them with the world.
That's fantastic. We'll make sure we put all of that information in the show notes. Awesome. Thanks so much again, Brian, for joining us today. Awesome conversation.
Thank you very much for having me.
On Education is an on-podcast media production. My name is Mike Washburn. My co-host is Glen Irvin. You can get in touch with us or ask us questions to answer on air by visiting our website, oneducationpodcast.com. You can tweet us at oneducationpod. Glen is at IrvSpanish on Twitter. I can be found on Twitter at Mr. Washburn. Our sound engineer is Jake Codeweiss. He's on Twitter at JKRadio. You can find us on Facebook by visiting facebook.com/oneducationpod. If you're enjoying the show and think others would too, we would be honored if you shared it with them. Please leave us a rating or review in Apple Podcasts or the Google Play Store. When you leave a rating, it gives our rankings a boost. This helps others discover the show. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Schoology, for supporting us. Check out Schoology.com to learn how they can help you advance what's possible. Thanks as always for listening. Stay awesome. See you soon.